9 a.m. The bus is quiet in the morning. The engine revs, and the wheels turn, and the Americans in the back drift into nothingness, while the Brits in the front grow more awake. You think that maybe Americans suffer from extreme cases of narcolepsy. They have been asleep since they were born, and they will never realize their own unconsciousness. You realize it, though. You know what it means when an American's eyes glaze over and their hands twitch and their lips don't move. When you speak to them, they hear sounds, but they do not listen. Brits, on the other hand, are awake after the full moon rises and Birmingham Palace glows with light. The pubs bustle with hairy, celebrating men whose eyes stay wide until the moon sinks into the horizon. The tune of Werewolves of London slithers into your mind and you smile. It is a 2-hour drive to London. Flutter your eyes closed. Rest your head on his shoulder. 11 a.m. It is cloudy and cold. He asks you if you want to go eat lunch and you nod. Pull out 10 pounds from your pocket and sit at a table inside a pub. He orders ginger beer, opens his mouth, and then never closes it. He tells you about he survived the hospital for 6 months, as nurses made sure he did not attempt to kill himself again. They prohibited forks, knives, they made him wear white. For once, you begin feeling for him, reaching for a ghost. I promise nothing bad will ever happen to you, he says. And you believe him. 12 p.m. The Rosetta Stone is anticlimactic. It's smaller than you thought, and the glass case is plain and glaring. There is a crowd huddled around the exhibit. You squint and twist and push through the bodies. An Indian man flashes his camera and the security guard barks at him. Sir, no flash photography. The man answers back in fast, angry Hindi, and the crowd is propelled forward, fueled by loud voices and heated tones. Fingertips smudge the glass case and cover it in sweaty, misty fingerprints. Grab onto his hand and pull him out of the mess. You have to get out of here. You want air. No, he says. There's a glint of amusement in his blue eyes, of morbid curiosity. He plants his heels into the marble floor. You bite your lip and stay beside him. 1 p.m. You stumble into the Japanese exhibit. It is a tiny room, but it's quiet. You stand by a case which holds a samurai sword, and you wonder if you would ever be able to gather the courage to perform seppuku. He finds you. What's wrong? He asks. Nothing, you say, and your hand feels dead as he takes you into the elevator and pulls you outside. 2 p.m. You stand at the side of the street and look up at the trotting horses. It is time for the changing of the guards, and a new batch of soldiers gallop into Birmingham Palace as the old ones march out. A child jumps up and down, giddy at the sight of golden horses, and he springs in the middle of the street. "Look out!" a policewoman yells. The boy pauses and realizes that the crowd is watching him, that the soldiers have reared their horses to a stop. His pale face blossoms into a dark red, and he begins to cry. You want to run after the boy and hold him close to your chest, stroke his brown hair, tell him that it's all right to make mistakes. Sometimes you run out into streets, you want to say. You would tell him to breathe, and you would nudge him back to the sidewalk. You would guide the little boy's feet forward. But instead you stand across the street and watch. 3 p.m. You bend down beside swollen pigeons who peck at your sneakers. Their wings are black and bent, and many of their toes are missing. They look up at you with pit-like eyes. Turn your head and look at his eyes. You can hardly tell the difference. 4 p.m. If you think about it, the Communist Manifesto proposes some good ideas in the beginning, he says as you walk toward town. Except for when you get to the very end, you know, the part where Mark says you can kill anyone who disagrees with you. You nod. You say that you would never want to be the same as everyone. How could you know if you were human then? He smirks. Yeah, I don't want anyone to be equal to me either. 5 p.m. You eat dinner at a French restaurant in the middle of London. Avery and Allie are with you, and he is there beside you, holding the menu open. It's expensive, you murmur. Stop complaining, he snaps. I'm paying, remember? You look up at the silver ceiling, the silver chairs, the silverware. You wonder to yourself, if you sold your body to the devil, would he care enough to buy it back? 6 p.m. Romeo and Juliet is not what you expected it to be. The director took liberties on the idea of taking creative liberties, and you find yourself disturbed. Electronic music blasts through the globe speakers, strippers dance on poles, and Romeo's face is covered in white paint. Shakespeare's rolling in his grave, you think. The half-naked girls grind against Romeo's hips. You are sick to your stomach. You glance at him, though, and see that the corners of his mouth are turned upward into a smile. 7 p.m. Your bones are soaked from the chilling rain, and now you are huddled outside the Starbucks down the street. Your lips are blue, and you can't stop shivering. With trembling hands, you grasp the white teapot and pour hot water into the mug. Lava spills onto your skin, and you cry out. Your mother had told you that you were too fragile to travel across the world. She tried to convince you that you weren't enough for the land you walk on. Yes, you stepped onto that plane to prove her wrong, but London still makes you question your worth. Remind yourself that your value is not measured by the silver dollars in a boy's eyes. You are more than just your body. You are more than just a shell. You are a spirit and a soul, and the only man who loves you unconditionally lives in the clouds. 8 p.m. Bleed openly. London will soak it up greedily, and the gravel will absorb your anxiety and hold it in a pool around your legs. Your limbs shake uncontrollably, and your lips quiver. Sink to the floor. He pulls you into his arms on the cobblestone street, rubs your back, massages your thighs. Shh, he coos, but his touch is revolting, and you want to bolt. You had thought that blonde-haired boys with hollow promises wouldn't try to pry you open. You thought that maybe the Globe Theater would open your mind a bit wider, but now your mind has morphed into a chasm. So now you let him hold you in the middle of the street, people stepping around you, and the sea lapping across from you, and the Starbucks buzzing behind you. You don't feel anything as raindrops plop onto your skin. London Bridge is falling down. You look away. A man covered in wool sells poetry, salted peanuts on the bridge. He blows hot air into his hands and rubs them together. Build it up with iron bars. You think you should have asked him for a couple of rhymes to fill your chest, give you some meaning. Iron bars will bend and break. Something, anything. Build it up with gold and silver. You think that you have to get out of here, my fair lady. You peel your skin from his and stand.